Hello and welcome to Vikings Happy Hour. I got two of my favorite people here on Vikings Twitter, Matt Freese and Miles Gorham. How you guys doing tonight?
Good.
Doing great, man.
What a hell of an intro by David, by the way. I just want to call that out. It just got me so stoked watching all those clips and all the beer drinking and
all the beer drinking. Yeah.
It kind of threw me off, though. I was like, what the hell is going on?
I think it was awesome.
Yeah, no, it was cool.
So we got a new kind of like podcast live show going on here for Climbing the Pocket. You guys are the first guests, so we're going to navigate through this thing the best we can. We got some stuff to talk about, but the first thing we should talk about is what is everybody drinking tonight? Matt, why don't you go first?
All right, so I've got, if you can see here, Left Hand Nitro Milk Stout. Left Hand Brewing Company, they're out of somewhere in Colorado. They do great stuff. I love them. This is probably one of my favorite beers of all time. It's a great winter beer. It's a great milk stout. I don't know. It's pretty much available everywhere. I've seen it like across the country pretty much. So if you like stouts, check it out.
Miles, what do you got?
I'm drinking an Oktoberfest. I know it's January, but I've had this thing for a couple months. So it's sitting in my fridge. I was like, why not? So I don't know. Where's my camera? Wherever my camera is. It's pretty good, though.
I almost stuck with a classic for myself and just
You're
was
Mick
going to
Golden?
drink a Mick Golden.
Yeah, that's what you drink.
But I didn't. I went to the liquor store. I got this new one called Surly Moving Pictures. It's a juicy
I don't like
IPA.
IPAs.
Well, they don't like you, so.
You said it's a juicy one though. So like, what does that mean?
It's juicy, man. It's like biting into an orange. I don't know.
Oh, yeah, okay. It probably tastes like more like orange juice, more juicy than bitter. So
yeah,
a bit sweeter than like a typical IPA.
Some of the sours aren't bad, so I'll give you that. Like I don't hate some of the sours.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's got to be small. I can't have like a full pint of sour.
Well, David, what are you drinking?
Hey guys, I am drinking. Let me throw the camera on real quick. A Titan. See if I can get it. Lights going out. Titan
that's sweet.
IPA. It's brewed here in Colorado. It's brewed by Great Divide. I do love IPAs. However, I prefer the more bitter ones versus the juicy ones.
Mm-hmm.
But it's a good IPA. Nice, good color. It's awesome.
No, Great Divide's a good brewing company. They got Yeti's their main stout line.
Yes, right? Yeti, and I have some Yeti in the fridge. No less.
There you go.
Awesome.
Matt, did I miss Freeze? Are you in Colorado?
No, I'm actually in Pennsylvania. So
shit.
I just
Look at me. I don't need.
No, so yeah, that's what screwed me up with the time zones there. I thought it was 7:30 Eastern. I was ready an hour early, but we're here now.
For sure.
Well, like I said, thanks for coming on today. I got a few things we should chat about. So I'll leave it up to you two what one we should talk about first. We can either just review the Vikings season, some disappointment, some surprises, or we can just dive right in on the news that broke today that George Paton is gone. He's going to the Denver Broncos, 6-year deal. So what do you guys want to chat about first?
I guess, there was a lot of chat in the group chat today about George Paton. Let's jump in there. So, I mean, George Paton obviously been with the Vikings front office forever. I think he was made assistant GM or something like that in 2012 when Rick first took power. You guys can fact check me on that.
Yep, that's right.
But has been through a ton of interview processes over the years, turned a bunch of jobs down from what we've heard, right? I believe, and now finally has accepted a 6-year deal with the Broncos. And it kind of brings into question where the Vikings are going as a franchise and what their direction is, right? Our top assistant in our front office staff kind of left. So that leaves us with a question of, was it Rick who's making all of the great moves that we've made over the years? Or how much of hand does Paton have in that? What are we losing when we lose George Paton, right? And I guess for me personally, it's kind of a wait and see kind of deal. Like I personally would still remain optimistic about the front office. I think we've done a great job. There's some conversation we might lose more people. Miles, you might have a little bit more info on that than I do, at least in terms of names. But, until we see a shift in how this front office performs, I think we did a great job in the 2015 draft. We've had a bit of a lull here in the past few seasons, but then in this past draft, we had Justin Jefferson, we had Cameron Dantzler, Jeff Gladney looks pretty good too. We've got quite a few contributors. So I think we've done a relatively good job, and I think that'll continue. Now, obviously, if it doesn't continue, that very much brings into question Rick, right? So, Miles, I don't know if you want to expound a bit more on that.
Yeah, so I can tell. So I've reached out to a few folks I know that are pretty tight in that know the Vikings organization, know people there, and the people I've talked to, everybody's raved about George Paton, and I think for obvious reasons, George Paton has chosen to turn down other opportunities to become a GM and stay as an assistant GM with the Minnesota Vikings. He's been with Rick Spielman since the Miami Dolphin days before he came to Minnesota, before they all came to Minnesota. So there's something to be said that now is the time for Paton to get out and choose a new opportunity with the Denver Broncos after all these years of having potential opportunities to take on general manager roles elsewhere. I mean, that could be for a variety of reasons. It could be the team, it could be the fit. Where the Vikings are at, it could really be that. Like, that's possible where he views the future in Minnesota. But also what I'm hearing too is that he was the guy that he became the I've heard people say that he's the best talent evaluator in the front office, and the fact that he's the he uses analytics, and he's the guy that has kind of put a lot of things together. Obviously, he ladders up to Rick Spielman, so there's that. Like, I don't think he's making final decisions, but I think it got to a point with his relationship with Rick that Rick trusted him to do a lot of things that gave him a lot of responsibility. Otherwise, why would Paton stay? And so I think there's a lot of trust. There's a lot of a great relationship in that front office for Paton to work with guys like Rob Brzezinski, Jamal Stevenson, the head of college scouting, and the director of college scouting, excuse me, and all that. So it comes to me as it's not a surprise that Paton's leaving, but it kind of tells you a little bit that either they had promised him Paton at some point that he was going to be the general manager, to supersede Rick at some point to take over for Rick, or maybe Rick becomes the team president, steps down, whatever that looks like. I'm sure that those talks were there, and that's why Paton stayed around as long as he did. Maybe it got to a point where Rick, there's no reason for Rick to leave, to step down, or the Vikings aren't going to get rid of him anytime soon. So Paton said, I have this great relationship in Denver. I'm going to see what it looks like, and takes that opportunity, and good for him. But Matt, you brought up a point of a few names. If you're somebody that has that high up of a position in an NFL front office, what's one of the first things you want to do? You want to go bring in people because you want to work with people. That's the easiest approach to take. You want people you trust. You want to go to people that that know what you're thinking and know what you're looking for, and how to build a franchise, or how to add on to a winning franchise. And so a few names that I've heard potentially, there's no guarantees here, but Scott Kuhn, he handles analytics for the Vikings, could be a name. Jamal Stevenson's a name I said earlier. He's the director of college scouting, could be someone that Paton tries to bring over to Denver. Rob Brzezinski's would be another name, obvious name. I'm sure that I think they're from what I've heard, they're pretty tight. That could be another name that he could look to try to bring, the cap guy for the Minnesota Vikings right now. And I'm not saying he's going to be successful getting all those guys, but don't be surprised if one or two more people, a few more people are leaving the Minnesota Vikings to go to the Denver Broncos to go be with George Paton.
And I think a lot of fans here in Minnesota know about what Rob Brzezinski has done, right? So Definitely. If he left, a lot of fans would probably react to that in a negative manner. People like Jamal Stevenson, kind of probably behind the scenes, but known to do good work. And I know we heard Courtney Cronin today kind of talk about how, George Paton was, one of the best evaluators of talent within that whole room. But to Matt's point, I think that we kind of have to wait and see, how this draft unfolds, and then kind of evaluate from there before we can really make a good assumption. But yeah, anything else you guys kind of want to add on that, or?
Just add on to it. And, with Gary Kubiak, he hasn't officially retired yet, but all the rumors are he's going to be retiring. It's just another loss in a series of losses for the Vikings as a franchise recently in their front office and coaching staff, right? I mean, we can't keep an offensive coordinator for more than a year, it seems, whether it's they get fired because they're John DeFilippo, or they resign weirdly because they're Norv Turner, or they get hired as a head coach, or they retire because, Gary Kubiak has well-documented health problems, right? It's not too much of a shock that he doesn't want to have an offensive coordinator role on a team for much longer, right? It is a bit surprising that after a very successful season for an offense that would happen, but the amount of coaching turnover this team has had is really interesting for how successful we've been without it all being coaches leaving for head coaching jobs, right? As a franchise, making the playoffs every other year maybe isn't what we want as Vikings fans, but it's better than a lot of other franchises.
They want it.
Right. Well, we want to make the playoffs. We just don't want to make the playoffs every other year. We want to make the playoffs every year, right? But that's more successful than a lot of other franchises, right? But it also seems like we've had more turnover in the Vikings staff than what you would expect from a team that makes a playoff every year, even when you account for the coaches that have been hired away as head coaches, right?
Yeah, I mean, that's on – go ahead,
Matt.
Miles.
No, you're good. Go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, and that's on top of, like, Zimmer getting rid of people too, right? Like, we've had people leave for head coaching jobs, or we've had people just leave because their contracts are up, but Zimmer has also gotten rid of people because they don't fit what he wants.
Yeah, I mean, I think outside of, last offseason when they lost, they let Jerry Gray go. I think there was one other coach they let go on the defensive side of the ball.
George Edwards, the defense coordinator.
Yeah, George Edwards. That's the name I'm thinking of. Besides those two, they had the defensive coaches had been in tact the entire time Zim had been here. So like 6 years. Zim got his entire defensive staff for 6 years. Obviously, there's turnover now, but offensively, obviously, that's where the turnover's really been seen and heavily. The inconsistency on offense, and that's the one side of the ball you want less. You want to have continuous continuity. You want continuity on the offensive side of the ball because you can. What we've learned is that offense year over year can be sustainable, successful, and if a successful offense can be sustainable year over year, obviously, but continuity. To your point, Matt, that's important there. And that's the one area the Vikings haven't had that continuity. And so I think last year was the first year, in my opinion, I was really like, oh shit, we're losing Kevin Stefanski and there's no true like replacement. Like Pat Shurmur there was into Kevin Stefanski. So like at least you had someone and are from not John DeFilippo, but Norv Turner was into Pat Shurmur and into Pat Shurmur, John DeFilippo, but from John DeFilippo, you had Kevin Stefanski waiting. Right now, you're kind of looking at Clint Kubiak as the guy in waiting, but I don't really know much in terms of what kind of experience he'd have. Obviously, he hasn't been an offensive coordinator before, and we know that who his dad is. What's up, Jerome? But obviously, like we know who his dad is, so you'd expect the offense to be somewhat the same, but you just don't know how he'd handle a lot of his situations. He's been with his dad and worked under his dad. And again, the outside zone scheme is what we know Zimmer's going to keep. He's been adamant about that. He's mentioned that. But the one thing the quarterback needs continuity at that position, having a different person in his ear every single season, and then asking him to be consistent year over years. It's hard to do. So that's where I think last year losing Kevin Stefanski has always been something that I think is going to be a big mistake for the Vikings, at least in my opinion.
Yeah, and I mean, we can definitely get on a tangent another episode for sure.
Yeah, we could do that.
Just about, I mean, we've had so many chats within the Climb in the Pocket group just about whether or not you should have an offensive-minded head coach or a defensive-minded head coach. And I think a lot of things point to what you just said, Miles, just the turnover. But how do you guys feel about who, because we don't know, right? Like we don't know who our next offensive coordinator is going to be and what they're going to be like. So how do you feel about that? Is there any names that you're hoping instead of Clint Kubiak, or are you let's go all in with Clint Kubiak and just keep this wide zone scheme?
So for me, I guess it's between managing expectations between who I think they would hire, right? And then also, looking at who I might think they would hire. I think Clint Kubiak is probably what's going to happen, right? He's Gary Kubiak's son. The Vikings kind of have a thing with nepotism, right? We hired Scott Turner, Norv Turner's son. We have Adam Zimmer as our co-defensive coordinator. We've got Clint Kubiak. Under Mike Zimmer, we've just had all these coaches' sons on the staff, right? So I have a feeling that, based on his experiences, kind of similar to Kevin Stefanski, right? Kevin Stefanski was with the Vikings a very long time, right? And I'm not discrediting the amount of work that Kevin Stefanski did to get to the position he's in now. And obviously he's a very sharp guy, and he's the head coach of the Cleveland Browns, and he brought them to the playoffs and got them a playoff win for the first time since literally the Cleveland Browns were the Cleveland Browns again, right? But
yeah,
Kevin Stefanski got a job because he's Ed Stefanski, who was the former GM of the Sixers' son, and Brad Childress brought him over when he was hired as the head coach of the Minnesota Vikings, right? So there's history of nepotism in the NFL, and in a lot of cases it works, right? Kyle Shanahan is one of the best offensive coaches in the NFL right now. So I think ultimately Clint Kubiak is going to get a shot, and hopefully it works out for us. On the outside, I think the number one reasonable candidate we could bring in is Anthony Lynn, right? Anthony Lynn coached with Mike Zimmer in Dallas. He's a Parcells tree guy under Mike Zimmer. I think that makes a lot of sense. I actually might like Pep Hamilton, who's the quarterback coach in LA, a bit more. He's got experience coordinating an offense. It was Andrew Luck with the Colts, right? They did a really good job there. So those were the first two names that kind of popped to my mind. Outside of that, any of the Shanahan tree guys, but there's so much buzz about people in that area. Like, I know Mike LaFleur has a lot of buzz right now from the 49ers about being a head coach. Obviously, he's under Kyle Shanahan. He's the Packers head coach brother. Like, it just kind of works that way in the NFL. So, Miles, I don't know if you got any names.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's another not obvious name within the Vikings that we're not talking about. It's because none of us want it to happen. But I think Rick Dennison is another obvious name. I think for obvious reasons, I can't stop because it's an obvious scenario for Mike Zimmer to make, because he literally has been with Gary Kubiak from the jump, and he will run the exact same offense. He's been an offensive coordinator before for Gary Kubiak, under Gary Kubiak. So Mike Zimmer would know exactly what he's getting with Rick Dennison, and also know that there's experience there. I'm not saying, David, that it's what they should do. I'm just saying Mike Zimmer's definitely hasn't checked that off the list. Like, there's no way it's not happening. So for me, I'd put that as like a likely candidate. And then obviously Clint Kubiak's the other one. I think those two are the obvious names. I think Pep Hamilton and Anthony Lynn are two other names that should really be heavily considered. Those would be the preferences for me, but yeah.
Yeah, so Miles, bringing up an offensive line coach, you know who I would absolutely love, I think, would be Bill Callahan, who's currently the Browns offensive line coach.
Sure.
Now, I'm not sure he would want to move on from what he's got there, because that offensive line is amazing. But he is probably the best offensive line coach in the league, if not top two. I think
Munchak.
Sorry, is it Mike Munchak, who was the Steelers offensive line coach and is now with the Broncos? Yeah, Munchak is amazing too, but you get Bill Callahan over here. We finally get our offensive line right. Like, I think that's every Vikings fan's dream right now, right? Is having a passable offensive line, really.
That'd be great. So, I mean, that's the only reason I pause with the Vikings being willing to move Dennison to the OC role, is because, like, who's the offensive line coach? Like, at least if you move Clinton, you could probably find somebody to be the quarterback's coach. I don't know. I mean, that's a lot of different things. Like, does Anthony Lynn bring Pep Hamilton? I don't know. Like, lots of different things that could happen. I don't know. Obviously, to Matt's point, to start this, is we don't know what Gary Kubiak's officially going to do. It hasn't been officially made. I know Mike Zimmer said he's going to let him go, take a couple weeks off or whatever to reevaluate the situation. But Zimmer's in his ear begging him to come back. So we'll see what happens.
I think something that gives me optimism with Clint Kubiak, if he's potentially an offensive coordinator for us, is like, he's young, right? And so hopefully he's innovative with some of the stuff he can do within.
Oh, he'll be a head coach in a year then. That's what that tells me.
Wide zone scheme. Well, he might be our head coach if things continue the way they are, correct?
Yeah, well, maybe.
That would be the worst reset button. If Clint Kubiak was head coach, I'm sorry. Like, I know he hasn't done anything as an offense coordinator, but enough about that stuff. Let's talk about 2019. 2020, shit. I wish we could talk about 2019. Let's talk about 2020.
Even though we don't want to.
Yeah, I mean 2020 generally, or where are we going?
Let's talk about the Vikings in 2020. A lot of fans were disappointed. Some of us thought that the Vikings maybe exceeded expectations. What are some of
Who
your
thought that?
disappointments? What?
Who thought they exceeded expectations? Nope.
You know there's Viking fans on Twitter who thought they exceeded expectations.
Trash.
You know it.
Trash.
Well, we're a fan base that lives for mediocrity, and we get that every other year. So
that's true.
So who are some players, coaches, games, whatever, some disappointments, some surprises? What do you guys got for 2020? If you had to look back at it.
So I guess I'll start here. I mean, I think, and this is the most obvious statement in the world, but number one surprise is Justin Jefferson, right? Like, I liked Justin Jefferson coming out of LSU. I thought he was, I mean, and just winding the clock back to around draft time, right? Justin Jefferson played all of 2019 in the slot at LSU, like over 99% of the snaps, right? There was tape of him in 2018 playing outside, but you still didn't have a lot of tape of him against press man where he's playing on the outside, and there were questions about his ability to beat that, right? I had questions about his ability to beat that. Well,
not for me.
I feel like an idiot. I remember going in that chat and being like, "Can Jefferson play outside?" And looking back at that, I feel like an idiot.
I thought
you all should feel like an idiot. I told you all that shit.
I thought personally that, for me, my preference was to start him inside in the slot and work him outside, right? Start him where he's comfortable first and then work him outside. We didn't need to do that at all. I was totally wrong about even the premise that we should try to do that, because as soon as he got full playing time in week 3, he started destroying people. I thought he had the tools to beat press. I thought he had the quickness, he had the ability to separate. He was great at the catch point the entire time, and we saw that all year, and he was awesome after the catch all year, right? I mean, it was just an incredible season. If you had asked me if he was going to do that right away as an NFL player, I would have said I wouldn't expect that, right? And Miles, you were right. So,
what it is with JJ, just real quick, is like, it's like, I've watched the 2018 tape and I said, there's something there. So I was like, what it felt like the reason they put him in at the slot in 2019 was they just wanted to be able to have a duo with him and Jamar Chase, because Jamar Chase
on the outside. Like,
right. So you put JJ, who they might have even thought as we don't know the answer, but they might have thought of JJ as their best receiver. So they said, hey, go run the slot. We're going to get you one-on-one matchups against fucking linebackers. That's a wrap. So, and he broke SEC records, all that stuff. Like, so for me, what I saw from Jefferson was a lot of things you saw too, Matt. Like, really, he's really twitchy. He's a guy that's really, he's got all the movement skills to be good against press. He's got the quick feet. He's got the really good hands, really good at the catch point, really good route runner. I saw all those things, but I also heard Gary Kubiak talk about him and say, we're going to start him out on the outside on the X and see how it starts. Because that to me was telling. That means the Vikings didn't just view him as a slot only receiver. They said, this guy can be a do-it-all type of receiver for us. We're going to start him at the hardest position, because if he can't handle it, at least we know we can put him in the slot and know that that's where he could potentially be comfortable at the NFL level. But if he can excel on the outside and be our deep threat, now you really have something there, because then you can keep Adam Thielen in his role. And that was always the most important thing for me. I think Adam Thielen's best in his current role right now as the Z receiver, because as he ages, as he continues to like maybe lose a little bit of his speed, he's still going to be able to get away from press coverage. He's still going to be able to get free releases and those things where he can be successful as he continues to age a little bit. So finding that X receiver, that guy on the outside that can win his one-on-one matchups and be a little bit more of a deep threat, was always a pipe dream if you were going to move Stephon Diggs. So I was like, if they're really infatuated by Justin Jefferson, it just told me that they must have thought he could be more than just a slot receiver, and I viewed him as more than that.
Well, and just to add to that a little bit, like, the stunning thing I think for all of us is that we all love Stephon Diggs here and what he added to the Vikings, right? He's an absolutely fantastic receiver. Obviously, he was first team All-Pro this year. Matt, you're wearing a Bills Diggs jersey, so we know how you feel about Stephon Diggs, right? But Justin Jefferson was able to replace that 1-to-1. And honestly, he took on more of a role in the Vikings offense than Diggs had when Thielen was here. Now,
Which
I'm not saying
the
that
hell out of me. Because they could have done that with
Diggs previously, right? Like that was just straight up wrong how we used Diggs previously and how Thielen had more of a role. But this season, like Adam Thielen was our red zone threat, right?
Yep.
And between the 20s, it was Justin Jefferson the entire time. So, I mean, it was just incredible.
What up? No, yeah, for sure. I'm with you there.
But yeah, moving on to another player. I think if we're going on standouts, I just want to move to Eric Kendricks real quick. I'm actually doing a piece. We've got Fry's Football Friday every Friday with me.
Let's go.
I'm doing a piece this week on Eric Kendricks. I really feel like he should have been All-Pro this season. I think it was a bit of a snub. He got 3 votes, but it wasn't good enough for second-team All-Pro or whatever because the All-Pro voting process is absolutely broken. And he did only play 11 games, but you can see, or I think it was 11 games. But you could see in those last 5 games how just absolutely awful our defense was without him, right? He was kind of the glue that held our defense together all season, whether it was the run against the pass. I mean, we literally couldn't defend the run in the last 4 weeks of the season. That's why Alvin Kamara got freaking 6 touchdowns on us, right? He just had another awesome season. I just wanted to shout him out for that.
Yeah, I think I know I wrote an article probably 2 years ago now, like heading into maybe the 2019 season, kind of calling Eric Kendricks out and being like, you need to do more. Like, we signed you to this big contract. And he showed out last season and he showed out again in 2020. Like, he is a stud. And I honestly believe if he's in there.
What a picture.
Great picture, David. I honestly believe if he's in there for any of those games at the end, Vikings are probably in the playoffs playing the Saints this past weekend. And I'm not saying we beat the
Bears
Saints
for sure. I think we beat the Bears for sure.
The Bears. Exactly. I think we beat the Bears.
I love Eric Kendricks. I can't sit here and say 100% that they beat the Bears, but I'm not saying he wouldn't have helped, obviously.
You don't think Kendricks in the Bears game stopping Montgomery more than like what he did would have gotten us to the playoffs? I definitely think
I'm not saying he wouldn't have helped. I'm just saying, does he score more? Like, that's
Miles, you know how many punts we forced in the Bears game?
0.
1. We forced 1 punt. It was on the first round of the game.
You're right. Yeah. You're right.
So I mean, and we only lost by 6 points. So we stop a couple more drives. I think we have a legit shot to win that game. And, us getting the playoffs doesn't matter. Well, I mean, maybe we beat the Saints again, improbably, for like the 3rd time.
Oh, that would suck. I'm just going to call that out right now. That would suck.
What's up, Mary?
I wanted to keep losing.
Yeah, but,
yes, David, I know he helped prevent scoring. I know. I'm just saying. He's fantastic, and I agree. I think had he not gotten hurt, he would have been an All-Pro player. I mean, I think it's obvious.
He should have been.
I think 11 games it's just not enough. I think there is a baseline.
No, I think you're right.
And if somebody has played as good or close to a good of a level and they've played more than 11 games, I think it's fair to say that other person probably deserves it, because you can't guarantee what Eric Kendricks was going to do the last 5 games. He missed 5 games. Like, it's fair to say that he didn't deserve.
Cole Beasley got All-Pro votes. Like, come on.
Well, I agree. I'm not saying the system isn't flawed. I'm just saying I understand why Eric Kendricks isn't an All-Pro player this year. That's all. Had he made it, I wouldn't have been upset.
The All-Pro system's totally messed up, and I don't need to go for like 2 hours complaining about how bad it is. So
we can do a side chat,
though. Yeah. No, I want to talk about a couple of players too. I think, since you already called out the obvious ones, Matt, I think Harrison Smith is continuing to be Harrison Smith through all the fucking chaos that we had at defensive back this year. I think him still being who he is.
Let's go.
Yeah, like him still being who he is. I mean, Hall of Fame level. Probably potential future Hall of Famer, should probably be a Hall of Fame level player. Still showing out, and a guy that has no guaranteed money left on his deal. So hopefully the Vikings kind of extend him and right the ship there, let him retire a Viking. Unlike Kyle Rudolph, no offense to Rudolph, Harrison Smith's the kind of guy like I want to see retire as a Minnesota Viking. So I want to see that happen. But he's the guy I want to call it. He just played phenomenal. He got asked to do a lot this year, even more than probably usual, just because of the cornerback situation that we had. So I wanted to shout that out.
Well, just on Smith real quick, every single play you watch, he's calling out things, he's lining guys up. Mentally, he is doing so much for the defense. But yeah,
he's
100%.
He is
this
so
defense.
good.
This defense can't afford to lose him.
No,
it's baffling. Like if you put a poll out there right now, just to the general NFL fan base about Harrison Smith, they dismiss him. They love Earl Thomas. They love Jamal Adams. Earl Thomas didn't even play this year, but they love all those other safeties. And I'm not saying they're not good.
Right, you're right.
But Harrison Smith is elite, but he's quiet. And for some reason, he doesn't get the recognition he deserves. And to Matt's point, he went on a big all-pro kind of tangent this past week about how, Harrison Smith, when you go and look him up, he doesn't have the all-pro votes, but he should. And when it goes down to his legacy in the end, he deserves to be in the Hall of Fame. I don't think there's any question about that.
Yep. Like the Vikings didn't retire 22 for Paul Krause, but they should definitely retire it for Harrison Smith. So, I don't think anybody should wear that number again. That's just how good he's been. Obviously, if they're not going to retire 84, I can't sit here and expect them to retire any number. But anyways, the offensive guy that I want to appreciate is Riley Reif. Riley Reif was really put into a really shitty situation this year. The Vikings waited and then went to him in late August and said, "Hey, you either take a pay cut or we're going to cut you," during a pandemic, knowing that the $8 million we're offering you right now, you're not going to go get on the open market for a 1-year deal just because of the situation we're in and the season starting. Like, I just think I commend him for staying but not just staying, but also playing. He played better this season than he did any other season since he's been in Minnesota, and I think, and probably his overall best season in the league. And I think that was impressive. A guy that he could have pulled a situation where he just kind of not half-assed it, but he kind of maybe his heart wasn't fully in it because feeling a little smited, feeling a little feeling some of that this is where people forget feelings and stuff like that matter, and how people play. Like that stuff is important. It's not just nothing. So he went out there and he played really well. He played at what I think his I have it right here. His PFF grade was a 73.1 overall. I think he was a 32nd graded overall offensive tackle. That's left and right. That's impressive for a guy that he's probably an above average at best left tackle, but that's still a pretty good damn left tackle. And I think for me, I think to watch him play that well, he played himself into a situation where cutting him in this offseason isn't just like an automatic, see you later, Riley Reif. Thanks for your, what was it, 4 years of help. So,
and I think really the other thing with Reif is he was totally on an island where he is because the left guard spot was
that's a good point.
Garbage,
not
garbage.
I'm sorry, Dakota Dozier, but it just every other snap when you're watching the tape, Dakota Dozier is getting beat. I remember watching the Texans game early this season, right? And Dalvin had a really nice game in that game, who also deserves a shout out for being one of the best players of the year. But it was literally every snap you would either see Drew Samia or Dakota Dozier get beat. And that continued the whole year. Fortunately, we put Cleveland in there. He had his ups and downs too. I wouldn't say he was great this year. But when you're the left tackle and you're expected to go up against edge rushers, it's really nice to have interior help. And when you don't have any of that at all, I'm honestly pretty sure that negatively impacted his PFF grade, right? I think he probably performed better than being the 32nd best tackle in the NFL. He legit shut guys down. He has his problems, especially against elite speed rushers. He's never going to be that great. But he's a really solid player who, if we move on from him, we better have an actual plan.
Right.
It's not somebody we can just cut and say, we'll be fine with the guys we already have. We need to have a plan if we don't want to keep him around. for next season.
What's crazy
100%.
about that, though, is going into, and I'm saying this without looking back at my own tweets, but a lot of fans were like, Riley Reef won't take a pay cut, just cut him, right? Like, we'll just roll with Oli Udoh and Brian O'Neill as the bookends, and we'll just go with it.
Or put Ezra Cleveland in there as if he was ready to play, like left tackle in the NFL.
Yep.
And I think that, like, fans just need to understand that, like, average, like, offensive tackle play is acceptable, like, because it is so hard to find some of these tackles to play well. And I think Riley Reef is a perfect example of that. And when people want to point to Rick Spielman about not addressing the O-line, like, he put big money into Riley Reef, and I think he's done pretty damn well for the 4 years that he's been here.
I agree. Yeah, I'm with you
With
on
that being said,
Dalvin Cook's the obvious name though, Matt, too. Yeah, Matt, go ahead.
Oh yeah, go ahead, Matt. Sorry.
No. I want you to elaborate.
Oh, I mean,
I'll just keep drinking my
what
beer.
do I need to elaborate on with Dalvin Cook? Just watching every single Sunday. Like, it's ridiculous. Honestly, like, it actually, and this is maybe a bit negative, but like during the end of the season, it seemed like he was going down on ankle tackles more than I'm used to, but he was still gaining like 8 yards a carry on those plays where it seemed like he was falling down. So I'm not really sure it's a problem.
I'm ready to see him next year just be really angry and just, he's pissed about not being all pro.
But that man's balance and the way he's able to slip out of tackles that he shouldn't be able to slip out of, it's just ridiculous. Like, and like you said, Matt, didn't even get a single All-Pro vote this year. Now Derrick Henry rushed for 2,000 yards, and Alvin Kamara scored 6 touchdowns against us. I guess that's his case for being an All-Pro, which but no, it was a really fun season from him again. He's a special player. I would say personally, and I know this is a controversial statement, running backs don't really matter. There are about 4 in the NFL that do, and their names are Derrick Henry, Alvin Kamara, Dalvin Cook. Sorry, I got their names mixed up there, and Nick Chubb. And that's about it.
I was waiting for that last one.
Christian McCaffrey, huh? He doesn't matter. I like it. I'm not disagreeing. Hey.
Are slot players running backs? Like,
well, they're more valuable than regular running backs because they get you more yardage.
Cole Beasley was a second-team All-Pro this year. So.
Yeah, right. That's true, David. He did have 4 touchdowns against the Packers.
I have to check. I know that we have
and it wasn't on Christmas.
Potentially some Packer fans listening or watching. No votes for Aaron Jones in that debate.
I'm an Aaron Jones fan too, by the way. So
I love Aaron Jones. Aaron Jones doesn't get the ball enough, honestly.
I know. I was gonna say I kind of hope he goes somewhere and feasts.
Oh yeah, he is a free agent.
But to your point, if Dalvin Cook could figure out a way to stay healthy, I think obviously it'd be unanimous. Like when you say that there are like running backs don't matter, like but there might be 4. The only reason those guys truly matter though. And it's true is because they get the focal point of the focal point of their offense. Alvin Kamara is the only one that isn't, and he still does what he does. That's why I think I've said for the last few years Alvin Kamara is my RB1 in the league, just because I think he literally can do everything better than anybody else. I think Christian McCaffrey is probably the closest in terms of receiving ability, and maybe he's a little bit better. But I think in terms of like you talk about balance, speed, all those things, I'd maybe just give him a hair, notch above Dalvin Cook. It's close though, but I think the receiving ability is where it kind of separates it from me. But Dalvin Cook's legit. Like it's not that Dalvin Cook. I don't think anybody's ever questioned Dalvin Cook's talent. That dude's a beast. That dude's like. I'm so glad he ran a 4.5 40 at his combine because people were like worried about that, like as if that matters, like as if you didn't see his burst and his like acceleration. Like it's not as if it's not like the best in the league. It's arguably the best in the league. Like that 4.5, he might as well like on the field. He's running a 4.3. That's what it looks like.
Yeah. That was awesome. I love talking about that stuff. Let's just quickly. I don't want to linger too long on disappointments because there's a ton of them, and we could go for hours. But just give me somebody that just disappointed you this year.
Not
Who is
named
someone
Dakota
that?
Dozier.
Yes.
Oh,
Well,
for me,
that's not a disappointment though, right? Like that's an
That's true. That's
expectation.
true.
I
I didn't have
mean,
any
this has
expectations.
been a few years coming, but for me, the number one guy is Julio Johnson. I
That's-
really
oh,
liked
yeah.
Julio coming out of
Good
Iowa.
call out.
Like, I thought he was a very solid penetrating 3-tech. You know, we had Tom Johnson at the time, I think, and I thought he would get it done as somebody who could develop behind him. Now, we kind of screwed around with Julio a little bit because we tried to make him a nose tackle, and then we moved him back and forth. But, I mean, you guys watched it too. Our offensive line were getting their asses kicked. Or, I'm sorry, our defensive line were getting their asses kicked 5 yards off the line of scrimmage every single snap. And Jaleel was a big part of that. Like, the only defensive lineman who was able to hold up, and I have trashed him for a long time, but was Shamar Stephen. Like, you would see Shamar Stephen hold at the point of attack, and Jaleel was just getting knocked 5 yards downfield. You know, he's the guy we drafted in the 4th round. You hope those guys develop into quality contributing players, and he simply wasn't that this year. And that's why he's the biggest disappointment for me.
That's a
Miles,
good
you
one.
got
I
one?
think disappointment. I mean, like you said, there's quite a bit, but maybe I'll say I won't say Bradbury just because I don't know. I'll say Anthony Harris just because I think like Harrison Smith, they brought Anthony Harris back because they knew that they weren't going to be able to afford cornerback help. So they said, well, let's make sure we keep our safeties intact and let those guys be help for our young cornerbacks. I viewed that as the wrong solution because I felt if you're going to spend $11 million, just go get a cornerback and you can help both positions. But they didn't do it. I like Anthony Harris. Anthony Harris was coming off, what was he? I don't know if he was an All-Pro last year, but he was close to it. I know at least his play was up to an All-Pro level. I don't think he was voted as an All-Pro, but his play was up to it. So 100%, I love the idea of like bringing him back. I didn't like tagging him. I mean, I think he deserved to go get paid, but anyways, they tagged him. He came back, but he just didn't seem to have that same type of like spark and like energy that he had last season. He didn't seem to like. I'm not one to call anybody out for like their like commitment, so I'm not going to do that. But you could definitely see that he wasn't the same Anthony Harris, and maybe there's
the big plays
injury.
weren't there.
The big plays weren't there, but also like some of the things we saw the last 2 seasons, 2019, 2018, was Anthony Harris making sound tackles, making good, taking good angles. He wasn't doing some of the fundamental things that we're used to seeing from Anthony Harris, and that was probably where I was the most disappointed with him. Is just like some of the fundamental things that some of the head mistakes and like those errors, like you're just not used to seeing from him. He's a sound, smart player, and like I know he's better than what he showed in 2020, and I think he's probably excited to hit free agency to try something new because I'm sure he's excited to kind of show the league that he's like legit. But overall, like that's where my disappointment is. Like there's no turnovers from him in a time where the Vikings really needed more turnover help on their defense. He's a guy that you'd have loved to see him create a little bit more, impact to help those young corners and to help the defense.
So
Yeah, I mean,
I've got one more guy real quick. And this might be a little bit controversial, but I'm going to go with Eric Wilson because Eric Wilson is not a 3-down linebacker. He is a pass coverage linebacker. He cannot defend against the run. Somebody is going to pay Eric Wilson a lot of money in this offseason, and I really hope it's not the Vikings because we're going to have any team who starts him is going to have problems with run defense because he simply can't fit it. Eric Kendricks gets tagged by second level blockers coming up to the second level occasionally. He's usually able to avoid it and use good instincts. Eric Wilson has that happen to him all the time. He just can't get in the play on run defense. Also, go ahead, Matt.
I was going to ask, do you think that's because they asked him to play the strong side linebacker position? Do you think that maybe played a role in do you think if he played the weak side in a base 4-3 that like he might have a little bit more help there rather than playing the strong side? I'm just curious. Defense isn't my full, but like.
No, so I think that's a fair point. I think when you're playing weak side, you're asked to run free more. And I think that helps him out, right? Where he's being asked, but in today's league, like you're basing out of nickel, right?
That's true.
So
no, for sure.
You've got two linebackers in the box. So would you rather have your linebacker take on an offensive lineman, or would you rather have your safety take on an offensive lineman, right? You'd rather have your linebacker. So if you're signing Eric Wilson, you're expecting playing him in nickel, and he needs to be able to fit the run nickel. So now if you have a defensive tackle that can keep him clean, he's made some instinctual plays and he's done that sort of stuff, but the Vikings don't have that right now. So that's what
I'm with you on that. I'm with you on that, though. I don't think he played up. He made some nice. He created turnovers, which is obviously like a need that this team need. Like this team needs more turnovers. Yep. They need to create more turnovers. But like to your point, he got bullied a lot too.
I'm all for getting a comp pick for Eric Wilson this offseason. Like, see you later. Give me a fifth, and we'll talk about it later.
He might not. Yeah. That's a good point.
And to Miles' point, I share that sentiment with Anthony Harris a little bit. I wonder sometimes if he was trying to do too much to accommodate the rookie corners that just hadn't quite learned quite yet. Because he did play better in the second half of the season than he did the first half. But like you guys said, too, the turnovers were missing. I think he had I might be speaking.
I think it was 7 interceptions last year. I think that's what it was.
Was it 7?
I think that was the number.
It was pretty high, though. Like, I know he played pretty outstanding in 2019. So for him to come back in 2020 and not really perform to what we expected him to, the Vikings maybe got what they deserved there in the fact that they held Anthony Harris from really cashing in. So, I had listed in our little chat about what to talk about Deshaun Watson. I think I'm just going to pass that.
That's not happening.
We all agree here that we would love him here,
last year.
No matter what it took. Not going to happen, right? And if it does, we'll do an emergency happy hour because I'll be drunk by the time I hear that Deshaun Watson's
we'll all be happy for sure during that one.
Yeah. So let's just finish this live show off with like a playoff preview. Let's go game by game. Tell me what you got. Tell me what you're looking for. Rams versus Packers. Somebody go.
I'll go. I mean, I think the Packers have the best overall team between the two, I think. But I think the Rams defense has been phenomenal. But the question is, can they stop Davante Adams? That's all. Like that's the main question in terms of the Rams. Like Jalen Ramsey is the best cornerback in the league. Him and James Bradbury and who's the other one I'm thinking of? Stephon Gilmore, whatever.
Xavier
but like
Gilmore.
Yeah, Xavier Howard this year. Like those guys, but like Jalen Ramsey is obviously like, name recognition, all that, 2 first-round picks, big contract, whatever. But he played up to it. He's been a shutdown corner this season, and arguably the best defense in the league. And Jalen Ramsey, like I would hope he shadows Davante Adams, but the Packers do such a great job. We laughed at the Packers for their draft because they didn't address the wide receiver position, but what they did that the Vikings don't do enough is they move their singular top receiver and say, we're going to move you all over the place and not keep you in one area because we're going to make sure that we feature you because you're our best player. And we're going to let you feast because when we let you feast, we win football games. We make big plays. We score touchdowns. We win games. They do that with Davante Adams. So as much as I think Jalen Ramsey can be effective, how do you slow that down? Nobody's been able to slow it down this season. So, like, all I'm saying is, like, I won't be surprised if Davante Adams still has a big game. Now, if they can limit him, that's the key. But I don't know if they can do it because I haven't seen it happen this season. So if they do that, that's their key. That's the guy that they need to key on. Obviously, like, how are you not doubling, Davante Adams and then letting everybody else kind of do their thing? Because the Rams have other good corners, Troy Hill. Number 31. He's
Darius
good.
Williams?
Darius Williams. Thank you. Yeah, no, Darius. Yeah. He had a pick 6 last week too. Like he's a really good player too. Like they have really good cornerbacks, so you can leave those guys on an island and let against Allen Lazard and MVS and make sure that you're doubling, tripling Devontae Adams and don't let him be the one that beats you. But I still think overall, I think because the Rams offense I'm assuming it's going to be Goff. Who knows what their plan is, but his bum thumb and all that stuff. Like, my assumption is the Packers defense can hold up a little bit better than the Rams offense. And that's where I see, because I expect the Packers to be able to score a little bit. Like, they've been able to do it all season. Nobody's really truly been able to stop them besides the Bucs. So I'm not 100% sure if I see the Rams being able to completely slow them down. So I think the Packers are going to win this game, but I think it'll be a close game. I don't think it'll be, I don't think it'll be a 35-40, 37-point game or something like that. But I think it could be like a 24 to 17 type of game, and I think the Packers could edge them out. And I just think they're more consistent on offense. That's kind of what I'm trying to get at.
Yeah, no, I think that's a good take there. And, like, honestly, you can turn this game off when the Rams are on offense. I think the real fun is going to be when the Packers are on offense and they're playing the Rams defense, right? That's the matchup for me.
Yeah.
If you don't mind, Matt, I'm going to jump to my favorite game of the weekend, which is Bills-Ravens, right? And if you guys want to jump in here, because it's a really fun game. We were having a discussion yesterday about who you want from the 2018 draft class, and I think all three of us are on board where
Tensions were high.
I think all three of us were on board that Lamar is who we want first, but not everybody had that opinion, because Josh Allen has played phenomenally this year, right? And I hated Josh Allen coming out of Wyoming. I thought he could not play in the NFL. And I thought the first 2 years of Josh Allen playing in the NFL showed you why he couldn't play in the NFL. He wasn't an accurate quarterback. He just played hero ball all the time, right? Just watch the Texans-Bills playoff game last year. Josh Allen is trying to win the game on every single play. And because he was doing that, he lost them the game, right? That's kind of a summary of who I thought he was as a player. And then he gets Stephon Diggs this year, and he's just incredible. He's accurate with his throws. He understands what's going on. He's making his reads. And to be honest with you guys, I think the change is kind of legit. Like, I think that he has fixed a lot of the problems that he had. And these are things that I didn't think quarterbacks could, fix, right? I didn't think quarterbacks could make themselves more accurate, make themselves make good decisions in the pocket. Like, Josh Allen consistently made poor decisions in the pocket as a quarterback. He consistently pulled the ball down when he shouldn't and tried to make something happen when there was absolutely nothing there, or he needed to wait for his next read, right? But he's shown that. I think he's kind of made that change, and it's a little bit sustainable. And the Bills have the highest powered offense in the NFL now, potentially. I mean, you look at the Chiefs, you look at the Packers, the Bills scored 40 points a game for the last 5 games of the season. It was ridiculous.
Won me a fantasy championship. And
then all I have to say about Lamar is watch his freaking touchdown run from last week. And I don't know how you defend that, because Kevin Byard was in absolutely perfect position to make a play on that. And Lamar is just too fast for him, right? And Lamar has some struggles as a passer. They were more well documented this year, I think, because he's more under a microscope. But the Ravens have kind of figured that out recently, right? And they've got it going on offense, and they were able to absolutely 100% shut down the Titans run game, right? Like, Derrick Henry got nothing all game because all of the Ravens defensive linemen destroyed every single Titans offensive lineman the entire game. Calais Campbell, Brandon Williams, Justin Madubuike, whoever else they had on there, just dominated the line of scrimmage in that game. And if they're able to do that again against the Bills, that means that, Stephon Diggs needs to beat Marlon Humphrey, who's one of the best corners in the game. And Stephon Diggs might be able to beat Marlon Humphrey consistently, but that's an awesome matchup to watch, right? You have Marcus Peters on the other side, like the best ball hawk in the NFL. He makes plays on defense. He might give up some big plays, but he still makes plays. I think that's an awesome matchup. And then, can you possibly contain Lamar Jackson? I thought the Titans did a good job early, and then the Ravens, just started doing different things, right? They were keeping a defensive back down in the box and basically had a defensive back spying Lamar Jackson early.
It's crazy, yeah.
Right? And because it was like Desmond King, who's really good, and like Kenny Vaccaro, who's a really good run support guy and can make good tackles. They were able to make tackles on Lamar that you don't see guys make those tackles on Lamar. I'm not sure the Bills have that guy in the secondary, right? They've got Trey White, who's a really good lockdown corner. And so maybe you're relying on Micah Hyde and Jordan Poyer, who are actually really good and underrated players too. But like, that's an interesting matchup to watch. I think it's going to be a really fun game.
I'm excited about that game.
Do you guys have predictions? Because I'm writing down what you're saying. I got you both written down for Packers.
I can't give you a solid prediction. I think the Ravens win the game, but I think that's also half me hoping the Ravens win the game. So I don't know.
I want both teams to win. So I do. I really do. I wish this was the AFC Championship. I wish this was like, I love Patrick Mahomes. He's the face of the franchise of the NFL. He's the face of, like, he's the guy that he's going to be, potentially the next Tom Brady in terms of like that dynasty is being built. They're probably going to be a dynasty for the next decade, but like he won his Super Bowl. I want to see Lamar, or Stephon Diggs. Like I want to see those guys, get their opportunity. So I wish this was the AFC Championship game because of that reason.
Can we move these teams over to the NFC? Because the NFC teams that are left suck. Like the only NFC team, like I want the Rams to come out of the NFC just because they're the least bad option, right? Like I don't want Tom Brady.
They'll still lose though. They'll still lose.
And I certainly don't want the Saints and Packers in the Super Bowl. So go Rams.
I don't care. I don't care as much about the Saints, but like anybody but the Packers for me. But I'm with you.
Yeah.
Miles, who are you picking? I gotta know.
Yeah, I don't want to pick. Don't make me pick.
I mean, everyone knows where I'm going.
I mean, Diggs is my guy. I mean, I want Diggs to win.
No.
I also
Diggs is my guy.
Shut up.
I won the poll on Vikings
whatever.
Twitter.
You cheated. I know you paid people. But no, I think the Bills have created the best roster in the NFL. I really do. I think they have the best front office in the league right now. I think they've been able to prove how the hell do they have Kenny Stills on their and Devontae Freeman on their roster? They signed Kenny Stills to their practice squad.
And Devontae Freeman.
And they got Devontae Freeman on their practice squad. I mean, and they got Darrell Williams. Like they have guys that can fill in at every position of their team if they have injuries. Like how in the 2020 during a pandemic can you do that to a full roster? Like they have the most complete roster in the league. It doesn't mean they're going to win, but they have the most complete roster in the league. And it's hard to say that they won't win this game. I think it all comes down to mistakes. Who makes the first, who makes the worst mistakes? I mean, both. I think Josh Allen has the tendencies to make more mistakes than Josh Allen, but he also has more opportunity to make bigger plays down the field because he has more weapons on offense than Lamar does. Obviously, Lamar in the run game trumps a lot of things because you can't stop him. But I think in terms of like the Bills, like to your point, Matt, the Bills have scored. They score a lot, and they want to continue to score a lot. So I expect this to be a shootout, which I think is going to be fun. But I think the Bills could be the one that has a little bit more sustainability in what they do. So I'll say the Bills. But I'm not gonna, I won't be mad at whoever wins this game because I hope whichever team wins this game, I hope they win the Super Bowl.
Yep, I agree with that.
Let's I think we dove headfirst into those first two ones. So let's just fly through these last two. Just give me your predictions. Browns, Chiefs. Matt, go ahead.
I mean, Patrick Mahomes. Yeah, I'll take Patrick Mahomes. I think if the Browns get an early lead, they're more well equipped than the Texans were last year to hold the Chiefs off. But the Chiefs still have Patrick Mahomes. He can score 20 points in like 3 minutes. The game's over. It's done. Chiefs.
Yeah, I'm ready for Mahomes to shred that Browns secondary. And it'll be over by the third quarter.
Yeah,
Miles?
I don't even think we need to talk about this game. I mean, if like I wasn't as surprised as some people I'm sure a lot of people weren't as surprised either that the Browns beat the Steelers. But they're not just going to go into Arrowhead and say, "Hey, Patrick Mahomes, Patrick Mahomes isn't Ben Roethlisberger. Patrick Mahomes doesn't make those same type of mistakes that dude is on a whole nother level. And Andy Reid coming out of a bye week, that dude's unstoppable. Like, that dude's had 2 weeks to prepare for this game, even if he might have expected the Steelers to win. Like, he had time to – well, actually, he knew the scenarios. So, like, the Browns were one of the teams that they were preparing for. So, like, I don't anticipate them to let the Browns beat them. So, I mean, it's Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid.
Perfect. And Bucks Saints, who do we got? Who do we want?
I think it'll be the Bucks, but the Saints have an argument for the best defense too.
The thing for me is the Saints have just killed the Bucks both times they've played them, and I think that happens again. Like they have the matchup against the Bucks. They have the matchups to win on defense, and on offense, I don't think the Bucks will be able to tackle Alvin Kamara. Like, it's hard. Although can we talk about CJ Gardner-Johnson just real quick, just for a second?
Yeah.
And the Bears wide receivers, about how
he's so good at what he does.
How annoying, how frustrating do you have to be as a trash talker to get two players on the same team in the same season, different games to punch you?
Yeah.
The number one rule for the Bears wide receivers going into that playoff game was do not let this guy get to you and do not punch him. And Anthony Miller still punched him.
Can he get Michael Thomas?
Love to hear.
Or not Michael Thomas. Can he get Mike Evans or Chris Godwin to punch him in the face? That's the question.
I would love to hear what he said to those people to get him to do that.
Oh my God. It had to be
He's
incredible.
The ultimate trash talker of our time.
Has to be. I want to hear that mic. I want to hear that mic for sure.
I'm convinced that Javon Wynn's drop touchdown was like essentially, he made that nice catch on the sideline.
Yeah.
The Saints were like, yo, you're not doing that again. It's not going to happen again. And the touchdown, like 2 plays later, they were just so in his head that he dropped it.
They were, yeah.
Matt, am I putting you down for the Saints?
Yeah, you got me down for the Saints.
It's incredibly difficult to beat a team 3 times.
I'll say Bucks just because.
All right.
People say that, and I'm not really sure it's true. Like, there's a decent history of teams beating other teams 3 times.
For this pod,
Packers
really
beat
difficult.
the Vikings 3 times. Like, we've seen it happen. Like,
yeah.
Oh man.
Is that all we got, Matt?
We've almost been at it for an hour here.
Yeah.
You guys have honestly been fantastic guests for the launch of Vikings Happy Hour. I did switch over to Castle Danger Cream Ale midway through, just so you guys know. But you will definitely be – a spot is always open for you here if you want to come back. You guys killed it. And, yeah, I think that's all we got. I think Happy Hour is ending. This is last call. So, David, bring us home, man.
Hey, everybody. Thank you. It has been over an hour. Thank you for watching the first ever Vikings Happy Hour. Hope you enjoyed your favorite beverage of choice. If not, go get one. And also, speaking of go and get one, there'll be more Climbing the Pocket Network shows coming up in the near future, possibly tomorrow. You just got to watch and listen. And until then, Skol, everybody!
Skol. Cheers, guys.
Let's go.
Thank you for watching or listening. As always, if you like, subscribe, and ring the bell for notifications. And if you're listening to the podcast, please rate us on your favorite aggregator. Skol, everybody!